Hi folks. So about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I posted my first video on YouTube. And at the time it was about how I removed the rotor pivot from NH movement rotors for times when I would want to paint the rotor. So I'd take the pivot out, paint the rotor, whatever custom color it was going to be, and then install the pivot back in. And at the time, it came down to primarily just hammering it out. You can go back, find the video. I don't have a lot of videos on my YouTube, so you can see it there. But I figure I would come back and do an update, as there are some other tools that I've come across that work pretty well for it. So this first one is actually a similar idea as far as hammering the pivot out, because the pivots are just friction fit. In fact, let me just pull up a rotor here. So and get a pointer, toothpick here. So the pivot is just this little circular part here. And if you look at the back, you can see it's a little bit bigger on the back because you've got this toothed ring, basically gear that goes around the outside. So it gets friction fit in from the back. And so what'll happen is you can just push from the front and it will pop right out. As I said in my first video, sometimes you can do it by hand, but most often you can't. You need a little bit more force for it. So you just push down, comes out, do whatever you want to do with the rotor, and then when you're ready to install it back in, you just go in from the back and press fit it in. So what I came across is basically it's like a little anvil that used to be available on AliExpress. I think you can still find them, but what you'll see is it actually is just a little piece of steel, and it's got different diameter holes in it for different movements. And for 28, 24, and an NH35, 36, 38, you've got this hole, and the diameter of this hole is about 6 millimeters. So these things are becoming more difficult to find on AliExpress, but if you were to go and get yourself a piece of aluminum, maybe a piece of steel, whatever, and drill a 6 millimeter hole in it, you'd basically have the same thing. Now, the one extra thing that they included in the kit when I bought it is they actually have these little presses. It's basically a hammer press, but each one has a piece at the end, basically a protrusion that is roughly the same diameter as the center hole. Here we go. The center hole on the pivot. So it just ends up being a little bit nicer as far as inserting it and lining it back up. But there's, as you can see, there's 3 different ones for essentially the 3 different types or sizes of movements. But the idea is, like for the NH36 on this one, we look, it's going to be that hole. We take a movement, and then we put our rotor, put the rotor over the top, and then this little tool just fits into the hole. It sits like that, and then you just take your little watchmaker's hammer, if you're lined up with the hole, and give it a whack, and out it comes. So the pivot pops right out, and if we move that out of the way, there you can see the pivot. And there's no damage to the pivot. It's able to go back in just fine and dandy. So that's one way of doing it. Again, still relies on essentially the hammer method. But another way that works quite well is if you get yourself a jeweler's tool, watchmaker's jewel tool, I guess is the best way to describe it. This one is just from AliExpress, so it's relatively inexpensive, maybe like $100 for the tool and the accessories that come with it. But similar idea, but what happens is you'll get one of the adapters out, get one that kind of matches the size of your pivot, but you'll take this, mount it in your jeweling tool. And this is actually an area where this little thing still comes in handy. But if you were to put that on, then you could actually be a little bit cleaner as far as pressing it out. So at that point, you just come down, make sure you're lined up, and then it just presses right out. And we pull that back up, and then you got your pivot there, and another rotor without it. And then to put it back in, you would basically just flip it over, flip the rotor, or flip the pivot over, and then press down again from the back side, which would press it back in. So, hope that helps. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Thanks.